TikTok to YouTube, 100% automation, no watermark. I'm starting a new project. If you're coming over here from TikTok, you already know what's up. You might think there's already a solution out there, but I did a quick Google. There's not one that is 100% automated. It usually requires you downloading the video in the first place or hiring a virtual assistant. But I will talk about that when we get to the design phase. Actually, the discovery phase. For today, what I want to do is I want to go through the execution plan of how we're going to pull this thing off. Normally, I would just kind of go through this in my head and just kind of like do what I want to do. But there's a lot of people in my comments that are asking me, hey, Phong, what's a good project to do? I have a lot of ideas, but I don't know how to go to make them reality. And so hopefully me documenting all this, formalizing everything, writing everything down is going to help whoever's watching. So if you're interested in this, give me a subscribe because this is going to be a couple of videos and the whole series. All right, let's start. There's going to be 5 phases in this entire execution plan. Ideation, discovery, design, implementation, and retrospective. They all have their own reasons for why we're going through each phase, and I'm going to explain that right now. Ideation phase. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to really make sure we know what we're going to solve. A lot of times people will try to start a project and they have no idea what they're trying to solve, or they're trying to solve too many things. To really write down your problem statement is going to be super important because it's going to drill down on the scope. And once you know what the scope is, you can go off and do some research. You can go off and do some engineering and figure out how you're going to get this thing done. Writing down the problem statement would also allow you to cut any other problems out that you don't care about. Then after the problem statement, you're going to figure out why you want to solve this thing. So a lot of people want to solve things for themselves, or maybe a lot of people want to build a product and make some money out of it. Or maybe someone just wants to build something that's going to help people out there. I don't know. Being able to write down why you want to solve it helps you become more transparent and true to yourself. And once you have that, it's easier to operate because you're going to be real with yourself. You know what I mean? And you don't got to show this to no one. You don't need to lie to yourself. Just write exactly why you want to solve this. For me, this automation thing is going to save me a lot of time because I want to spend more time making videos and less time on operational things like trying to download my videos and then upload them to YouTube and then do all the description and title stuff. So after that, we need to write down what the current reality is. So what do people do today as a solution? And a lot of people will manually download the video from a third-party platform like Snaptic or something, and then manually upload it to YouTube, and then do everything with the details, and then click publish. All right, so there's a lot of room here to automate things and define the expected outcome. Being able to write this down allows you to understand what the goal looks like. Think about trying to travel somewhere and you're trying to put the destination into a GPS. If you don't know what a destination is, it's going to be really hard to be able to chart the shortest path there. If you're able to figure out where the end goal is, you're going to be able to find that path. It's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie. You're not going to be able to have an end goal in mind right away, but the closer you can get to whatever's ideal, the better. You know, list out what the ideal scenario is. And for us, we're talking about 100% automation, no watermark. The moment you post onto TikTok any video, it's going to automatically show up onto YouTube without you doing anything. That's completely ideal. And the worst case scenario here, I don't know, maybe like partially automated. Maybe the worst case is that there is no solution and I have to keep doing everything manually. The ideation phase is really important if you're doing product management or if you're an entrepreneur and you really need to narrow down what you're trying to solve and what you're trying to build. Hopefully this explains a little bit about how product and business and entrepreneurs do their thing before it gets to engineering. All right, so the discovery phase, this is where things get interesting. We look to see if there's any existing solution out there, whether it's product or engineering. We want to see what these products or what these solutions are doing and how it differs from our ideal outcome. A lot of the times when you're in BD or you're doing product, this would be, you know, competitor analysis. And we're going to see if this is even worth doing. Is what we're doing going to be valuable at all? I mean, to me, it's going to be pretty valuable because I've been trying to do this. And I've been trying to find a platform to do it that already exists, but there isn't one. It's good for me. But is it a 10x value add for other people out there? And the reason we want to ask this is that if it is a 10x value add, then there's a potential we can productize this and just sell it for money. I don't know. I gotta look at the market to see if something like this is needed. At the very least, I'm doing this for myself. And at the end of the discovery phase, we're gonna really decide, is this worth pursuing? You know, it could be that we get to this point and we decide we're just not going to do this project at all. It's going to be scrapped because there's an existing solution out there or that it's impossible to do. Discovery phase is very important, and you should definitely look into this phase before you write any code at all because you don't want to waste your work. Moving over to the design phase, this is pretty interesting for product and engineers. After we've gathered all our information from the discovery phase, we're able to come up with a plan and a design. The first thing we're going to do is core features. What are the features that we absolutely want to do and that this will not be successful without? And remember when we decided what the ideal outcome was going to be and what the worst case outcome was going to be? Your core features actually come from that. We will also decide what we won't do. This is arguably just as important, if not more, than the core features that we're going to design. A lot of the times when we're going through this kind of stuff, there's a lot of scope creep that happens because you want to do this one thing and then you think it's cool to do another thing, and it's kind of cool to do another thing, and then you just kind of like go all over the place and then you drop the project because it just becomes overwhelming. Being able to write down what you won't do up front is going to help you a lot to streamline processes, to narrow down your scope. And then accepted limitations. This is important because we don't want to over-engineer. We're going to be okay with certain limitations in our system. There's going to be things that aren't perfect, and we're just going to write things down that we're okay with. These things that we're going to live with for the short term, because fixing them will take too much effort. Now that we have all this information, we're going to go into spikes. Spikes are super important, and people don't do this correctly. When people go and do spikes, they start doing POCs instead because they're like, oh, I don't really understand what's going on. I need to get my hands dirty. And then maybe you're not building it right, and then you got to pivot and you're just wasting time. What the spike's supposed to do is for us to go figure out how we're actually going to build this thing given all the decisions and all the requirements that we've defined before. We're not going to write a single line of code. We're just going to come up with a couple of different proposals on how to implement certain parts of the system. Once the spike is done, we're going to have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do this, and then we're going to come up with our overarching system design and architecture. So how does the MVP look like? What are the system components? What are we going to do with the infrastructure? How are we going to deploy it? This is when engineering really comes in to figure out what we're going to do in the least effort basis, because we've already done all the groundwork to figure out what we won't do and how to do things. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about extensibility. So once there's an MVP, it's always important to figure out what is important for the project now and what's important for the project in the future. Don't overwhelm yourselves with everything you want to do. Just focus on the core MVP. Implementation phase. This is pretty straightforward, okay? We're just going to build it. This is when we actually get into the nitty-gritty of things, into the details, and we have to change the scope a little bit, and we can pivot a little bit. If you did the other phases properly, what's going to happen is we won't need to rescope too much and we won't need to pivot too much. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot of the times you get your hands dirty and you figure out there's like a critical error in architecture and you have to like redo everything. It doesn't happen all the time, but we're going to see with this project. I'm going to keep it simple, and I really hope it doesn't happen, but we're going to build, we're going to do some stuff, we're going to film some videos, and then we're going to demo it. It's going to be sick. And then finally, the retrospective. Why do we want to do a retro? A lot of the times we're always thinking about moving forward. We're always thinking about building something or getting something done or getting a new job or like whatever, right? Sometimes we just need to spend some time and chill and really think about what we have done, what we have achieved, the lessons learned, the challenges we've faced, and really figure out what the correct next step is. This means, you can look at what you build, think of some of the extended features, think about some of the limitations that we talked about before, and then, trying to solve for those, and then maybe replace certain parts of the system. I know for a fact, we're probably going to use some no-code, low-code solution for parts of the system, and we might want to replace that with a more robust component later on. But for the MVP, you don't need to over-engineer. Then we're going to figure out, and this is the most important question, is it worth it to do anything else? So maybe the system already works the way it is. Maybe nothing needs to change. Maybe we want to stop spending time on this, 80-20 rule. You want to spend 20% of the time to get 80% of the results, and the other 20% maybe just scrap it. We don't need to spend too much time on this. We just need to figure out what to do afterwards. And instead of just moving, we're going to sit down, take the time to think. All right, so if you're interested in this project and you're interested in a TikTok to YouTube 100% no watermark automation tool, give me a subscribe because this is going to be super interesting. I don't think the project is going to be complicated at all, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope this was a bit insightful on how to organize a project very loosely. I'm trying not to overcomplicate the process with too many things you have to do or too many things you have to research. But if this was helpful, give me a subscribe and follow along with this journey with me. I'm going to build this thing, and then, maybe you can build it with me, and then maybe in the next project we can build something together. See you in the next one.